welcome to the MMA Roadshow, episode number 84 and a half. That's right, it is bonus edition content. My name is John Morgan. Cold coffee? Well, he's still not with me. He's back home in Las Vegas. That man was at the Manny Pacquiao fight last night. Look at Cold Coffee branch now, doing that World Championship boxing. Meanwhile, I am in Mexico City, rolling solo right now, if you can believe that. They're doing things a little bit different. Try to knock this thing out just as quickly as we could. You know how we like to do, knock it out about 3, 4 in the morning, just be ridiculous like that. But they stopped serving alcohol at the JW Marriott. Can you believe that? The after party was going. We were working hard, trying to get things done. And then they just cut us off and kicked us out. We got kicked out of the arena. We got kicked out of the host hotel, so I came back to my hotel room. But if you guys are fans of the MMA Roadshow, you know that my wife and son are with me as well. And this voice is not very good for allowing other people to sleep in the next room. So had to make the sacrifice for the family, let them get a few hours of sleep. And I said, well, you know what? I'll just do it by myself when I wake up in the morning. So it's bright and early here on Sunday morning here in Mexico City. I'll be heading to the airport shortly. But before, you know I wouldn't get on a plane without talking to you guys and talking about this show, because what a hell of a show it was, capped off by a main event. UFC Fight Night 98. Tony Ferguson earns the 5-round decision over Rafael dos Anjos. What can you say about this performance? This was an incredible fight. It was everything we thought it would be. I mean, this was the appetizer for UFC 205. We all know that on the inside we're already thinking about 205. We've been thinking about it for a while, right? I mean, Madison Square Garden, title fights, all this good stuff. But we had this one little stop along the way. After this 3-week break from competition, from live events, it was time to get back to business. And Rafael dos Anjos and Tony Ferguson delivered on an outstanding fight, no doubt about it. I thought both of them brought it, and I thought they both deserve to be commended, because the altitude here is no joke whatsoever. Maybe it didn't affect me that personally. Just kind of walking around having a few frosty beverages and slamming some tacos al pastor. But for these guys that were getting in there and doing it, it affected every single one of them. And we've seen it over and over. Three events in Mexico City. Every time, people say, well, I'm acclimated, I'm good, I'm ready to go. And sure enough, they're not ready to go. They think they are until they do it. But I thought Rafael dos Anjos and Tony Ferguson both looked amazing for 5 solid rounds. But it was Tony Ferguson who was just a cut above in this fight. Incredible performance. I actually gave him 4 rounds to 1, and I had no problem with the 48-47 score. It's cool to see all 3 judges have the same score on Fight Night, which I think is great to see. Not only the consistency, when I say the same score, not just the same score, but actually the same rounds as well. So, I mean, we're talking about exactly the same score. So, love to see that from the judges. Consistent results is important to me, and I had no problem with it being 49-46. Interesting, we ran I have no problem with it being 48-47. Interesting, because we ran a poll. I actually set this up last night on MMA Junkie, and as I look at it right now, we put in a little poll: how did you score Tony Ferguson versus Rafael dos Anjos? 43.19% at this moment right now have it 49-46 for Tony Ferguson. 41.92% have it 48-47 for Tony Ferguson. So you're talking about, roughly 85% of people scored it one of those 2 ways, and it was actually a cut above, just a little point above, that had it 49-46 for Tony Ferguson, which is the way I had it, which was basically just giving round number 1 to Rafael dos Anjos. But I thought that round 3 was incredibly close, and I'm perfectly fine with the 48-47 score as well. It's one of those things. I mean, listen, when you're judging MMA fights, you'd like to say that everything is absolute and it's very clear that it's this way or that way. But I do think sometimes there are rounds where you just go, well, I had it this way, but I do see that it was so close it could go the other way around. It's not a perfect science, unfortunately, as much as we like it to be. But fortunately, it wasn't one of those situations where it came down to that round deciding who won the fight, and then us talking about a robbery or whether somebody got screwed over. So great win for Tony Ferguson. The eye poke in round 2 is something that I want to go back and watch, and I'm kind of curious about it. Tony Ferguson, basically felt that he didn't really do anything severe, but Rafael dos Anjos it did seem to be kind of a turning point in the fight. Now, I thought Tony Ferguson was winning that round already, but it did seem to be a little bit of a turning point in the fight. So, if you're looking for anything, if you're a Rafael dos Anjos guy and you're looking for something to hang your hat on and say, well, it would have been different, I will allow that. I got to say that eye poke may have had some type of impact, but. RDA being the guy that he is, man, he's never going to make excuses. He is a classy individual, both in victory and defeat. And he basically just said, Tony was the better guy. Now, that said, I do think Tony was the better guy. I think the variety of strikes that he brought to the table showed a chin. I picked Tony Ferguson coming to this fight, but if you'll remember my pick, I said very, very concerned about the chin because he has been touched up a little bit his last couple times out. And I think if RDA touches him up, it could be problematic. But I thought Tony Ferguson showed an excellent chin. I thought he took some of the best blows. I mean, literally every punch that Rafael dos Anjos threw was coming with power. Every single one, and I kept waiting for a change. Tony Ferguson was really relying on those low kicks in the early on. He was chopping at the legs, and I thought it was smart. But damn it if every time he didn't throw a leg kick, here comes a straight counter left over the top, and powerful and connecting. And Tony Ferguson walked through him. He walked through him, man. He showed that he could take it. We didn't see the necessarily the wild rolling takedown attempts that we see from Tony Ferguson. I mean, that's fun. I mean, the stuff that he does, the Imanari style, approaches to the leg locks and the takedowns, they're fun. But they've always concerned me along his development as a fighter because he ends up giving up positions and giving up rounds after giving up positions. He didn't really do much of that this time around. I thought that was brilliant. The couple times he did make a run at it, one was at the very end of a round, so it didn't really matter. Another time, it looks like he's worked on basically escaping from that position. If it doesn't work, if he doesn't get what he wants, making sure that he gets immediately back to his feet. So I thought that was an awesome development there from him as well. Just can't praise the performance enough. It's to me, it's not that Rafael dos Anjos did anything necessarily wrong or bad. It's just to me that Tony Ferguson was on his game. He was on point, and this was a great performance. And for me, I think you got to give him the title fight next. I really, really do. 9 straight wins in the UFC's lightweight division is something special, and I think you have to reward that. And I know that what that means is that. If Khabib Nurmagomedov beats Michael Johnson, that's where the argument comes in. I mean, I suppose if Michael Johnson wins, you could make an argument. You could say, well, Michael deserves it. He just beat the undefeated guy that everybody had pegged as the number one contender, and it's a good argument to make. I mean, you can add in the fact that he actually would have these 2 impressive performances in a row. You can add in the fact that he actually beat Tony Ferguson back, way back in 2012. But that just doesn't do it for me, man. You still got the Michael Johnson losses to Nate Diaz. Yes, you got the loss to Beneil Dariush. I still, I believe Michael Johnson won that fight, but still, I mean, to me, what Michael would have done would not be as impressive as what Tony Ferguson had done. Now, if Khabib wins, now you got a guy that's 24-0, never lost in his career. But to me, the activity's not there, and not his fault, not Khabib's fault, but there is a Daryl Horcher fight mixed in there. So I think you got to give it to Tony Ferguson, man. I really do. I think he should be fighting the winner of Eddie Alvarez versus Conor McGregor. Now, Conor's the money man, right? Conor's the biggest star in the sport right now. If Conor wins the fight and has the 2 belts, what does he do? I mean, if it's close, do we have some type of other rematch? I mean, does Nate Diaz come into play, and all of a sudden, Nate's fighting for the lightweight title in the trilogy fight? Because come on, who wouldn't watch that? Let's go ahead and do the trilogy and let's put the lightweight title on the line to add something a little special to it. I mean, people might do that, and of course, Jesus, I mean, if Conor wins, he's got to do something about that featherweight belt, right? He's got to go defend it or give it up. I mean, I believe that. I've said it before, and I've said it again. I'm okay with Conor having the belt through UFC 205. What I'm not okay is us not figuring out what's happening with that belt on November 13th. So a lot of questions there, and it's all going to revolve around those 2 key lightweight fights at UFC 205 in New York, which of course we're all looking forward to. But to me, the outcome of those is, I don't want to say irrelevant, but it doesn't change Tony Ferguson's standing. I think he's got to have the lightweight title shot. I think he's earned it. I think this was a match performance, and I think you got to give it to him. So we'll see how it plays out. Tony's interesting. We got to interview him. Hopefully, you got a chance to listen to the interview with Tony Ferguson or watch it, on YouTube or on the site. But we had a great interview, I thought, with Tony Ferguson ahead of the fight, and then we got to speak to him a little bit after the fight. And I tell you what, he's not pushing too hard for the title fight. He wants it, but it's not like he's going crazy for it. And he's also sticking to his guns that he could still do 145. He could still do 170. And who knows, maybe even 185 as well. The guy is fun, man. I told him to his face, and I mean it, man. I have really enjoyed watching his development, both as a fighter and just as a person. Seeing the way he handles himself in interviews and just the way he's kind of managing his career. I've become a big fan of this guy. So big win for Tony Ferguson. And here's what he had to say to us in the media afterwards.
RDA proposed no threat to me. I felt not one time that I was in any danger. I go into the second round, my coach Eddie Bravo, one of them, he tells me that I told him in the second round, I remember that I said I was going to break his shin. I went 5 rounds against the ex-champ. I went toe-to-toe. And that dude tried to shoot it on me. I almost broke his leg with my shin. I'm very proud of that. RDA is a very tough opponent. I'm tougher. I'm here to stay. I'm here to have fun. I'm here smiling. And I was in there. I was enjoying my time. And you guys got a damn good show. And you guys are for sure lucky it was on free TV. I'm here to win. There are 2 other divisions that I would love to be able to go into. I made 153 pounds at the weigh-ins. I weighed in with pants on. I can go down to 145. I can kick everybody's butt there. I can bump back up to 155, knock everybody out and finish them. And you're damn sure I can go up to 170 and do the same thing. I want to be a multi-division champ. I'm not going to talk my way to get there. I'm going to earn it every single step of the way, like I said from the Ultimate Fighter House. So those that have doubted me, thank you. He didn't want no more part of me inside that octagon, so I wanted to go 5 rounds, and I wanted to make sure that the whole entire division knew exactly who I am.
So we'll see. The man wants to get paid, but, bringing the title around the waist, that does help you get paid. I think you got to make that fight. All right, let's talk about the co-main event. Diego Sanchez defeats Marcin Held. Big win for Diego Sanchez here. Again, a guy that found a way to deal with the altitude, found a way to get that second and third wind, as he said it, crediting the people of Mexico City. It's just a fun performance for Diego Sanchez here. Marcin Held, I actually picked Diego Sanchez going into this fight, and these were the exact concerns I had. Marcin Held is, as we all know, well, maybe if you're just a UFC fan only, you might not know, but he's a leg lock specialist, and he's great at what he does. And I think he showed well of himself, man. The transitions that he has, the variety of angles and attacks that he has, it's not that single entry type jiu-jitsu. I mean, the guy is just moving around. I think there's great things on the horizon for Marcin Held, but that's what concerned me going into this fight. Is that, yes, he's the young stud that seems to have more upside and, of course, has a longer career ahead of him than Diego Sanchez will, but does put himself in bad positions, would be putting himself, on bottom against Diego Sanchez in the high altitude of Mexico City, against a guy in Diego Sanchez who is a hell of a lot better at jiu-jitsu than I think a lot of people give him credit for. And let's not forget a guy that's pretty damn flexible, a big yoga enthusiast throughout his life, and I think proved to himself that, geez, man, it just some of the positions he was in had to be incredibly uncomfortable, but he never looked close to tapping. Now, all that said, in hindsight is easy. Now, as round 1 is playing out, concerns, I think, Marcin Held was having some success on the feet. I think he was touching up Diego pretty good. Now, I talked to Diego's coaches afterwards, and they said, no, listen, some of those shots weren't as good as they might have appeared to be. In fact, Diego Sanchez's team even thought that he had done enough to take round 1. Now, I'll admit, I'll have to go back and watch that. I didn't see it that way. I thought it was pretty clear that it was a Marcin Held opening round. But the boys at Jackson Wink MMA apparently think that he probably should have been awarded the first round as well. So, going to have to go back and watch that one. But so concerning a little bit, because I thought Marcin was having really nice success on the feet earlier, and it reminded me, because if you listen to that interview we did with Diego before the fight as well, Diego said he was expecting to go into the Joe Lozon fight and it be a submission fight. He expected it to be a grappling fight, and when Joe Lozon had success on the feet, it really kind of threw him off a bit. And to me, I thought, oh my gosh, here we go again. This is the submission expert having success on the feet. Were you not prepared for this? Were you so certain that it was going to be a grappling fight that you just weren't ready for a striking match at all? And I thought that's what we were seeing. But then I think the moment the tide really turned was when Diego Sanchez had that incredible guillotine choke escape where he ran up the cage essentially to alleviate the pressure and to switch positions and to get free of that guillotine choke. One of the most creative choke escapes I've ever seen in my life. Amazing to see, and we asked Diego about it afterwards. Is that something you drilled, or is that something you had in your repertoire? You could run up the cage every now and then if you're in the right position. And he was like, hell no, man. That was just survival right there. That came on the fly. So, man, big win for Diego Sanchez. Marcin held a cracked. The altitude got to him. There's no doubt about it. He admitted as much in his post-fight comments. The flash quotes that he sent to the UFC readily admitted that he was exhausted. He was tired in round 2. And I'm not saying that to take anything away from Diego Sanchez. He was tired because Diego was putting a grind on him, and because of this altitude. And, of course, the altitude affects everybody. Diego was able to deal with it. Of course, Albuquerque, where he trains, I think, people forget sometimes that is at high altitude. And, of course, we see all the countdown features and all those where, those guys will not only train at the altitude, but they'll go up to Sandia Peak, which is even higher, and do, more training up there as well. And, of course, Diego came out here to Mexico City to acclimatize himself very early as well. So just can't say enough about the win for Diego Sanchez. I know that Diego gets criticism. I know he becomes the brunt of jokes sometimes because of his personality and the way he carries himself and conducts himself and handles himself. I happen to be a huge fan of it. I really kind of am I guess cherishing these opportunities from Diego Sanchez because I don't know how many we have left. He's not an old guy. 34, I believe, is how old he is at this point, which is crazy when you think about it with how long he's been around. I mean, this guy is the Ultimate Fighter 1. He's the last of an era, and to see that he's still doing it as strong as he will, at such a high level as he is. I mean, yes, he's not consistently winning. I don't know that he says he still wants to compete for a title. I don't know if that'll happen or not, but it doesn't necessarily seem to be in the cards. But he mentioned to us, it didn't seem to be in the cards for Michael Bisping either. And then circumstances were what they were, and they became what they became, and then all of a sudden Michael Bisping is in there. I think it would be, it's not, jeez. Diego's in such a deep division, that I don't see anything like that happening anytime in the near future. But for him to still be out there and doing what he does and enjoying it, and he does, of course, turn 35 on December 31st, a New Year's Eve guy. For him to be out there and still doing it, I love it. I've come to cherish those opportunities to talk to him and to watch him fight because to me he is a future UFC Hall of Famer. The guy has got incredible longevity records in the UFC. I'll leave it up to my man, the young Mike Bond, to break it all down for you. But the number of fights that he's had in the UFC, the amount of time he spent in the UFC. I mean, yes, you can say there's criticism by the number of decisions, but man, he is racking up some ungodly numbers in how many overall minutes he spent in the octagon. He's becoming a real leader there. So big win for Diego Sanchez. He was in good spirits all week. Fantastic spirits as well after the win. And in lieu of the press conference, this is becoming more of a thing. I like it. I think some fans aren't loving it because they want us to have the streams. Now, they have done some stuff at the pay-per-views where they stream these little scrums, they stream these little sessions. They did not do that at UFC Fight Night 98 in Mexico City. I do like these where we get the one-on-ones, we get the little scrums so we don't have people falling asleep at the table, a la the Black Beast, Derek Lewis. But we see it. I like to mess with him because he laid his head down on that last fight. But everybody else, I mean, you see fighters getting bored. So I kind of like these sessions. I know it might be a little bit of a bummer for the fans because they want to watch those scrums right afterwards or watch the press conference right afterwards. But hey, all you got to do is just come to the MMA Roadshow, right? We'll have it for you. We got you. All right, here's what Diego Sanchez had to say.
I just would like to take my hat off to Marcin Held. He's a young, hungry fighter. He's 24, 10 years he's 10 years younger than me. And he came in there, and I know he trained a lot of striking for me because he knew that there was gonna be some striking in the fight, and he came strong in that first round. And I just had to weather the storm and find my rhythm and do what I do. I have that mentality. It's never quit, never say die mentality. I wasn't tapping out. It was a deep choke, and it hurt my throat. I still, I had an ice pack on it earlier. He got me with a hard choke, and you know what? My coaches always told me, find a way, and I had to find a way, and that's what I did. It's just the years of experience. I continue to learn. I continue to evolve. A lot of the time I get fans that come and say, oh, you got to bring back the old Diego, just bring back the old Nightmare. And I tell them, no, in this sport, you have to continue to learn. Every loss is a learn. You have to learn and continue to grow as a martial artist, or else you will not be able to stick around the way I have stuck around in this sport for so long.
All right, so Diego Sanchez with a big win. We'll see him again for sure. I mean, every time you think he's had enough, he comes back and looks even better. So, great win for him. All right, another man that had a fantastic win, Ricardo Lamas, picking up the submission win over Charles Oliveira. A big result in itself. Of course, Ricardo Lamas was supposed to face BJ Penn in Manila. That fight was canceled. I thought Lamas actually had a really good attitude about it, saying that, I think Oliveira is the better fight for my career because, beating BJ Penn was kind of a no-win situation for Lamas. And I think he's right about that. I mean, had he beat BJ Penn, what kind of credit would we give him, right? This isn't vintage BJ Penn, right? This is, an end of his career BJ Penn and a guy that's had some down results. So, I think that Ricardo's 100% right about that. I think he wouldn't have gotten much credit for it. And if he'd have lost or just looked terrible in doing it, BJ Penn is still a gifted athlete. BJ Penn is still a phenomenal fighter. So what if he comes out and pulls off the upset? Or what if he comes out and, he loses, but he stifles you and puts you in bad positions, and all of a sudden we start going, but I don't know, is Lamas that good? Maybe we were overrating him. And so to go to a guy like Charles Oliveira, who is certainly dangerous, I think he was right. I think this was a better fight for him. Now, by this point, certainly I'm sure you're aware that Charles Oliveira came in at 155 pounds, which is cool, except this was a featherweight fight, 9 pounds overweight with a 1 pound allowance. So, I said it. I said it to his team, and I actually said it to Ricardo Lamas. I said, you are crazy. There's no reason you should take this fight. 9 pounds overweight? That's not fair, man. You're fighting dude in a different weight class. We saw how that worked out for Will Brooks, and that was, 6 pounds, right? Not 9. So I told his coaches, I told him, I'm like, you're crazy. I can't believe you're doing this. And boy, did they show that they knew exactly what the hell they were doing. MMA masters. Those guys are walking around with a chip on their shoulder, man. They're in South Florida, and they're saying, give us the credit that we deserve, man. We've put together a nice team, and everybody comes to South Florida and talks about American Top Team and talks about the Black Zillions. Talk about us, the MMA masters, and man, they deserve some talking about after this. Ricardo Lamas looks phenomenal. Okay, let's talk about the performance itself. Well, yeah, let's talk about the performance itself. Then we got to get to one other thing. The performance itself was fantastic. Now, I thought, to be honest, that Ricardo was in some trouble. The Darce choke early on from Charles Oliveira, the arm triangle choke at the end. Man, he was in some bad spots in that first round. And I really thought, I was like, the height differential already was going to be problematic. You knew that. Charles Oliveira is kind of a long fighter, tall, lanky. Ricardo Lamas, a lot different build. But then when you add in the weight and the way that first round played out, in my head, I'm thinking back to Will Brooks and Charles Oliveira, just thinking, man, here's a guy trying to be a stud, taking a fight by somebody that's overweight, and it's going to cost him. And I'll say this, even when Ricardo Lamas went for the guillotine choke in the second round, I thought, dude, that is an incredible mistake. You're going to lose it, and you're going to be underneath Charles Oliveira. You basically just handed him top position, and instead got the squeeze, got the finish, and just a huge win. So financially, massive, right? He gets a performance of the night bonus. So he gets his show money, he gets his win money, he gets the $50,000 performance of the night bonus, and he gets 30% of Charles Oliveira's show money. massive, very, very massive. I can't say enough about it, man. To me, this is one of those, I don't want to say, maybe not necessarily career-defining performances, but one of those ones that you're going to look back on at any time and just think, man, that was just a guy that went against the odds in every angle of it and picked up a victory. And you got to give Ricardo Lamas credit for this fight. Okay, a couple things that I didn't want to take out of it. Emotional, and we're going to hear from that in just a second. Yeah, I mean, Ricardo finds out that his mom's dealing with cancer. That cannot be fun. I'm still fortunate enough to have both my parents around. I can't imagine having to deal with something like that. Of course, Ricardo Lamas is a teammate, or I guess you say was a teammate of the late Josh Saman. So that's been affecting the whole camp. Had a chance to talk to them about that a little bit this week and how that affected them and just kind of the way it all went down, and certainly emotional there. But you take all that and you put it off to the side, and you just look at the performance itself. Fantastic. I did talk to his coaches. Ricardo's coaches said that they were cool with him going with that guillotine. They have him do 100 guillotine chokes on each side every single day. Just drill the guillotine over and over, and they felt confident in him. They put him in bad positions all the time, and they felt confident that he could handle those bad positions and still come back and be able to battle out of them, even against a guy that's as good as Charles Oliveira. So huge fight, huge win, huge result. I mean, what could have been an awful end of the year for Ricardo Lamas ended up being something pretty special. And now, he's right there in the mix for some big fights, right? I mean, what do you do? What do you do with him, man? I mean, maybe put him up against a Frankie Edgar. I don't know. There's definitely some big fights there on the horizon. He's right outside that top tier. I mean, I think we all agree that Max Holloway is kind of the rightful number one contender. It's a weird time in the featherweight division because the champ's fighting in lightweight right now. The interim champ's not sure whether he's going to fight or not. So we'll see. Holloway, Holloway just beat Ricardo Lamas, so he's definitely the number one guy. Of course, he's got that incredible win streak as well, but Ricardo Lamas kept his name in the picture. I think he's right there. The one thing I did want to say about Charles Oliveira is he got a lot of criticism for missing weight by 9 pounds, and deservedly so. 100% deservedly so. But the one thing I did want to say, because I saw it a lot, was that Charles Oliveira, through some mistakes, it was silly, to be honest with you, but posted a picture this week of him eating at McDonald's with friends. To do that in a week that you miss weight by 9 pounds is incredibly unfortunate, but I thought he got more criticism than he should have, because a lot of people were taking that to mean he was eating at McDonald's this week, and I get it. I probably would have thought the same thing. Unfortunately, or fortunately I should say, Fernanda Praches was with us this week in Mexico. She speaks Portuguese, of course, as her primary language, and she basically translated and said, no, he's saying, this is kind of a hashtag TBT, a throwback Thursday or something like that, a throwback to times when I was having fun with friends and eating good food. I don't know that McDonald's qualifies as good food, but basically just, that wasn't this week. He wasn't eating at McDonald's this week. So cut him a little bit of slack. I did want to point that out because I thought he's being unfairly criticized there. And I did also want to throw one more just bit of praise on Ricardo Lamas for the class that he showed through this whole situation, because I'll be honest with you, man, I thought at the ceremonial weigh-ins on Friday that Ricardo would probably just start yelling at Charles Oliveira, would probably just start cussing him out or being pissed at him. But he was very polite, he was respectful. He shook his hand, before and after the fight. I mean, the whole run, he was very respectful. And Fernanda Praches actually was able to talk to Ricardo and said that I guess Charles was very respectful the whole way as well, made sure to reach out and apologize. And so I guess kudos to both men for handling what was a pretty shitty situation, to be honest with you, in a classy manner. I don't know if my opponent missed weight by 9 pounds, so I'd be quite as classy, but he certainly was. So big win for Ricardo Lamas, and as we said, an emotional win for him as well. Here's what he had to say after the fight.
He had me in a couple dangerous positions in that first round. First one, he kind of had that anaconda guillotine that he likes to go for, and it was pretty tight, but we worked on that a lot in camp, and my sensei Daniel Valverde, taught me a lot of good ways to escape that position. the rear naked choke was tight for a second, but once I peeled his hand off the back of my head, it loosened up. And to be honest, I didn't even know that the round was ending. I was just fighting the choke off, and once I got the hand off from behind my head, I felt good, and the choke wasn't deep anymore. There was no question in my mind that I wouldn't take that fight. It wouldn't have mattered to me if he was 20, 30 pounds overweight. Reed Harris came up to me and told me the situation, and before he could finish his sentence, "Do you still want to fight?" I said, "Yes, I want to fight." So, the people of Mexico came to watch a good fight. They always support me, and there was no way that I was leaving here without fighting in that cage. I was just happy to fight. After the cancellation of the Manila card, I didn't know if I was gonna have a fight or not. Luckily, Charles accepted the fight on short notice. And he was telling me afterwards, in my broken Portuguese that I understand, he was saying that he had some injuries that he kind of had to sit and let heal, and that's why he had trouble cutting weight. So I forgive him, and like I said, I'll fight anybody, any weight. This fight meant a lot to me for various reasons. One of my training partners passed away not too long ago, so that was kind of weighing heavy on me. Today is the date that my grandmother passed away from cancer about 5 years ago, and then recently we just discovered that my mother has cancer, so she just started getting her treatments done, and there's carrying a lot into this fight with me.
So big win there for Ricardo Lamas, and if nothing else, just a gutsy performance, man. Something that showed a lot of character. All right, the rest of the main card, Martin Bravo, I guess, pulled off the win over Claudio Puelles. Let's not pretend like we knew what was going to happen in this fight going in. I did binge watch a little bit, but I didn't watch all the fights. I said I was going to, and I tried, but I just ran out of time. Damn it. But I was impressed by Bravo. Was very, very impressed by Bravo. I thought he looked great, man. I thought the takedown defense was there. I thought the striking looked fantastic. Claudio was the bigger guy, a natural lightweight. Bravo is a natural featherweight, as our good friend Rodrigo Del Campo told us going into the fight. So didn't seem to have any issues with that whatsoever. So I thought I was very impressed with this performance. And then, of course, the liver shot, putting things down. You gotta love seeing a fight in that way. So a big performance there by Bravo. Like the placement on the card. I think these international tough finales, I think I counted it up last night. I think I've made cage side for 8 international tough finales, which is something to be said in itself. But I think to put him on the main card is good, give him a little bit of exposure. But I think initially when they announced this fight, they had that in the co-main event slot, and I just think that absolutely crushes a card, man. It kills momentum, and the majority of the audience doesn't know what they're watching. Now I should say, inside the building in Mexico, Mexico City Arena, dude, there was buzz for this fight, man. People were hyped for it. There's no doubt about it. So the Ultimate Fighter Latin America did what it's supposed to do there in bringing some attention to these fighters, and they were hyped for it. But I can imagine most of the television watchers at home weren't. Should also say, as long as we're talking about the crowd, that is a massive building. I think the last 2 times the UFC has been down here for pay-per-views, there were 20,000 people in attendance, close to 12,000 this time around. But it wasn't a pay-per-view. It didn't have Cain Velasquez. It didn't have the big names there, but certainly was still a very good crowd, a very passionate crowd, a very enthusiastic crowd. I enjoy fights in Mexico. They are very pro-Mexican. And they will let out a slur or two when they're singing, which I hate. I'm not a big fan of that, especially as my son is learning Spanish and learning the culture as he's spending a year down here. Of course, my wife is Mexican. I'm not a fan of that, and I think if anybody's a soccer fan or aficionado, they'll know what I'm talking about there. It's the same kind of stuff in MMA. I wish that would get cleaned up. Maybe it will over time. Maybe a generation will change that. We'll see. So that would be the only drawback. But overall, fun crowd, knowledgeable crowd. They definitely cheered in the right places and booed in the right places too. I enjoyed it. Just leave the slurs out of it, okay? Beneil Dariush picked up an impressive win, I thought, over Rashid Magomedov. It wasn't the most exciting fight. Certainly, I would agree with that. The crowd did kind of boo this one a little bit. It was very grinding in the clinch, man. It was a tough fight, but I can see, from a fan perspective, it was not necessarily the most exciting fight. That's for sure. But nonetheless, it was a good fight for Beneil Dariush. I thought, again, he showed great takedown defense. He showed good clinch work, getting to the tie clinch and doing real damage in there, and just really stymieing Rashid Magomedov. The knees inside were good. Man, when Beneil does have time to throw those kicks from range, man, he throws with power and throws very, very fast. Magomedov, to his credit, did some work inside, made it interesting. I thought, I had this fight 30-27 for Dariush, but I thought the fight was a little bit closer than those scores would indicate. I thought the rounds themselves were very, very close. So not one that you're probably going to go back and watch back, but a big win for Dariush, and of course the first loss for Magomedov. There was a funny moment in there. In the third round, Magomedov, you get 3 people in your corner. You get 4 if it's a title fight or the main event. You get 3 people in your corner. If one of them is a translator, then you get to have a 4th. Or a 5th if you're in the main event. And Magomedov did have a 4th. He had a translator there. And it was kind of funny because in the third and final round, the translator basically just broke from the corner where he was seated to run over to the part of the cage where Magomedov and Dariush were grappling at the time to start yelling instructions that had been given to him by the corner. It was basically a time update. And, of course, I don't understand what was being yelled there. I don't speak the language. But it was obvious that he was yelling corner instructions. And I thought it was pretty funny. At first, he did it once, and then he ran back. And Dean was right in front of us in press row. And I kind of saw it and kind of just instinctually kind of gave it the shrugged shoulders, like, the hell's this guy doing? You can't do that. Herb Dean was look over and kind of caught it out of the corner of his eye, but that's not really Herb Dean's position to worry about. That's the commission to worry about. So he did it, and then a few minutes later he ran to do it again, and this time the commission actually picked up on it. The inspectors that were there in the corner and ran after him and brought him back. But I don't know, it kind of cracked me up a little bit. I'd never seen that before. I guess the translator was doing the best he could to make things happen. I guess if you're not cheating, you're not trying, right? So he gave it his best. So something to watch for there. I had not seen a translator dart from the corner before, and he wasn't wearing all the Reebok gear. He was just wearing a suit, so it wasn't quite as easy to pick out, I guess, for the commission. But I thought that was pretty funny. And of course, the main card kicked off with Alexa Grasso picking up a decision win over Heather Jo Clark. Alexa Grasso, the strawweight prospect, much hyped. A lot of buzz around her making her debut. It was really cool to see, her fighting back a smile. She was incredibly excited as she came in, but she had to be nervous, man. Biggest crowd she's ever been in front of, making her UFC debut, doing it in Mexico, her native country. She knew the expectations were there. She said, "Listen, there's nothing I can do about them," but she knew they were there. I was impressed. I don't think this was her best performance. I think if you haven't seen Alexa Grasso before, you saw bits and pieces of what she's capable of, but I could understand if that's the first time you've seen her, if you're not 100% sold on her. She wasn't pulling the trigger as much as she should. And I'll be honest, I think she let Heather Jo Clark come in there and steal one round and keep herself pretty damn close in another, man. Those second and third rounds, it was one of those weird ones where it's like, if this was a street fight, you know who won, Alexa Grasso. You see the blood everywhere and the broken nose, and you know what happened. But in a prize fight, where rounds are being scored, I thought Alexa Grasso was so complacent that she was dangerously close to letting one, if not 2 rounds slip away from her in what would have been frustrating fashion. It would have seemed like a robbery, but just goes to show you the grit of Heather Jo Clark. But I think the first round you saw the flashes of what Alexa Grasso was capable of, the flurry that she had up against the cage when she landed the kick as Heather Jo was shooting in. She was definitely hurt after that, and then Grasso poured it on and tried to finish the fight and nearly did so. Would it not been for how durable Heather Jo Clark is, this fight would have been over. And but for the rest, I just thought Alexa was a little too patient. You could see it. I mean, you can see her that traditional boxing movement that she makes. I mean, she's rotating the torso, and you can see her looking to create those angles, and then just not letting the hands go behind it. I still think she's a top prospect. She's young. As I said from the beginning, I would love to see her and Joanna Jędrzejczyk fight at some point. Not now. Definitely not now. There's a lot of growth to be had there, but I just love Alexa Grasso's style, and I think we're going to see big things out of her. And should be said, man, she was getting a lot of support from the crowd. She may not be a superstar in Mexico yet, but they definitely know her name. The preliminary card: Eric Perez Goyito, who is a superstar in Mexico, no doubt. He is a fan favorite. Earned a hard-fought split decision over Felipe Aranches. Great fight, man. It really was a great fight. Aranches, who missed weight as well, should be said, we were live streaming the weigh-ins as we do every week now. The official weigh-ins in the morning, we just live stream them on Facebook Live, so you can always see them. Not maybe not necessarily the most exciting since they can last for 2 hours, but if you want something on in the background while you're working on a Friday morning in the office or whatever, turn it on. We'll have it there. I try to do a little bit of commentary. I'm taking pictures and doing other stuff along the way, but I try to talk about it a little bit, just whatever we're hearing or whatever we can do to keep things interesting. But Aranches was the last person to weigh in, and Reed Harris from the UFC actually came in and asked us to turn off our cameras. And, it was kind of a surprise. Definitely wasn't expecting it, but, known Reed since the WC days. Obviously been working with him for a long time. He's always been great to us at MMA Junkie and really everyone in the media. And so when he asked, it was kind of one of those things like, oh, okay. And in retrospect, maybe it wasn't the right decision. Maybe we should have stood our ground and said, no, we're the media, we're here. That's what we're here to do, is to cover and document what happened, and we're not going to turn off the camera. And to be honest with you, moving forward, that probably is the answer I'd have, and I'll definitely talk to him about it. But in the end, in the beginning, it just kind of caught me off guard, to be honest with you. And I was like, oh, okay. And I think everybody else that was there did the same thing, And the reason being that Felipe was hurting bad. Really bad. Like, to the point that really he's suffering from severe cramps from the dehydration. I think he was having trouble bending his legs. I think they were pretty much locked out almost. They had to essentially lift him up onto the stage versus him being able to walk up the steps. And they put him on the scale, and of course you got to let go of the guy on the scale because you can't weigh him with you holding him and supporting part of his weight. So they had to let him go, and he did it long enough to strike a quick fist pose so that we could take a picture of it, and that's the picture you'll see in the official weigh-ins, the early weigh-ins of the gallery we put together. But that's about all he did. Then he basically toppled forward and grabbed the scale for balancing himself, and then the team kind of reached up and grabbed him and helped him again. So it was not a pretty sight. It was really not a pretty sight. And so I thought, not that I'm a gambling man, but in my head I'm like, dude, put all your money on Eric Perez. Like, that dude is going to be in no shape to fight. But all credit to Felipe Aranches, man. He was recovered. He was aggressive. I thought he looked phenomenal, to be honest with you, man. He brought the fight to Eric Perez. Now, I had Eric Perez winning the first two rounds, edging it out. The takedowns were good. The grappling was good. I thought Aranches looked better on the feet, but I thought Goyito did good enough. But you could see it, especially in the second round. There was a moment, and it was wild because it wasn't like after an exchange. It was just a weird plant, basically. And you could see that Goyito stumbled. His knee buckled. I'm like, uh-oh, that's not good there. It looks like his knee is giving out. And, he did the best he could to mask it. But then you saw, I think, even in the third round, he threw a punch and fell down. Just fell down throwing a punch because his knees and his legs couldn't support him. So he was hurting. He was a wounded duck, and thought it was incredible drama there in that third and final round to know that, at least in my mind, he was ahead on the scorecards and just needed to hang on and to find a way to survive. He was retreating without running. Of course, you don't want to have a 10-8. You could be up 2-0, have a 10-8, and now you got to draw. And I thought Goyito did a good job of retreating and protecting himself, but not out and out running and being concerned with giving up a 10-8 round. So high drama there. Goyito did get the split decision, and then basically went straight to the hospital. We did not get a chance to speak to him afterwards. So gutsy win there from Eric Perez. Another gutsy win was Joe Soto, picking up the submission win over Marco Beltran, the heel hook. Joe Soto came into the fight on short notice as well. Of course, he was replaced the fighter who tested positive. Eric Perez took the fight, Joe Soto took the fight on about 5 days' notice. Had about 22 pounds to lose, I think, was what he had to do to make weight for the 140-pound catchweight fight. He did it, and this was another one. These official weigh-ins in the morning, there's really great. They're perfect for the fighters. There's nothing bad to say about them for the fighters. They get more time to rehydrate. They're dehydrated for less time. We've talked about it over and over. They're great for the fighters, there's no doubt about it. But it's a unique experience because you're in a small room. You're not in the arena. Yes, there are curtains up, and so the medicals, you're not seeing everything, but it just feels like you're seeing more than you did at the official weigh-ins, or excuse me, in the afternoon weigh-ins that we used to have. Maybe it's just because it's more of a more intimate setting. It's certainly because you're more close up. You're not sitting in arena seats. You're sitting in a little chair, 6 or 8 feet from the scale. And Joe Soto was one of the most emotional things. I had to fight back the tears, to be honest, as it was happening. We knew it was going to be a tough cut. His manager came in before the session even started and was asking about the scale and was looking at the scale and trying to find out, how accurate it was. Was it a half pound accurate? Was it a tenth pound accurate? Kind of just trying to find out exactly what it was what they were going to have to make because, these digital scales, they do round a little bit, and so you want to find out exactly how far it's rounding and how accurate you need to be. So when he did that, even before the 2-hour weigh-in started, I thought, that's not going to be good. And sure enough, Joe was the second to last person to weigh in. Only Felipe Aranches weighed in after him, and Joe was hurting pretty bad when he came to the scale, and he made 140 pounds, and afterwards broke into tears. And I don't know that it was necessarily so much emotion as it was just pure body breakdown. I mean, he sat down a couple of seats over from me. Again, I mean, this is a small room with 15 or 20 seats in there and only about 10 people. And he sat down a couple seats over, and just tears were starting to flow, and he was sobbing. And again, I think his body just broke down. And I may have misheard him, but I think he actually said at one point, did I make weight? Like, I don't even think he was sure he had made weight or not. And I think he just, kind of went through the motions, and then his body just gave up on him. And holy crap, to see that right across from you. And Joe's a guy that I have a lot of respect for. I've known his crew and his team and for a long time, since, the Tachi Palace days. And to see a guy going through that, especially a guy that that well, it's funny. I told him at media day. I went up and talked to him briefly, and I was just like, "Bro, you never do things the easy way, do you, man? You always take it the hard way." And this was the hard way again. So then to come in and to pick up a submission win like that, a minute and a half, a heel hook, not something you see a lot of. Just a beautiful transition to get into the position, and then once he had the leg locked, man. He took little chances. So I thought this was a huge win for Joe Soto. I know his team was hoping to get a performance of the night bonus on top of it, but hey, getting the win on less than a week's notice, I thought was amazing. And I just can't say enough about it, man. This was one. You don't root for people, you don't cheer for people, you can't, right? I mean, you can't. But I don't know, when you see a guy have that type of experience. Yeah, I was cheering for him a little bit inside, and was incredibly happy to see him pick up that win. That was a big one for him.
It feels great. That's a position I get into a lot, and I was familiar with that position, and I was taking my time with it once I got there. And it's awesome that I get to show my jiu-jitsu to Mexico City, my jiu-jitsu to the world on TV. I had 24 pounds in 5 days. It was a lot. It was the hardest cut of my life. I didn't think I could do it. I almost didn't. It took a lot out of me, but after I got through that, I knew I could do well in the fight. How did I cut the weight? Well, it took my team. They were picking me up off the floor, throwing me into the sauna. They were helping me the whole way. I was falling asleep because I didn't sleep the night before. They shaved my head, shaved all the hair off my body. Yeah, the altitude scared me. I was nervous about it, but. Yeah, I wanted to get it out early, but if it went all the distance, I just knew I would have to calm myself and go at a slower pace and try to breathe. I've been doing this for a long time, so I know how to fight. I know how to control my energy. But yeah, I was scared of the altitude, and I wanted to get it out kind of early.
So a big win for Joe Soto there. Again, an emotional win for him, for everybody involved. Big win there. Max Griffin, after a disappointing UFC debut, came in and just absolutely starched Eric Montano. I thought this was a mismatch from the beginning, and it played out to be 54 seconds was all Max Griffin needed. And he says, "Listen, this is who I am. This is the guy that you're going to see." And certainly impressive. He can continue something like that. I think he's going to face some stiffer competition in the future, but he took advantage. I always say, when you're matched up against somebody, you should be go out there and do it quickly, and that's what Max Griffin did. So a big win for him. He was having a good time at the after party last night for sure. I think he was enjoying his first UFC win. Douglas Silva de Andrade picked up the spinning back fist win over Henry Briones. Man, what a great fight this was. Briones too tough for his own good, man. The crowd hated the stoppage. Douglas hit that spinning back fist, and referee Keith Peterson basically stopped it as soon as he saw Briones go down. Briones didn't necessarily contest it himself. He didn't complain too much, but he was recovering as the fight was waved off. But, man, I had absolutely no problem with the stoppage. Briones, one of those guys, again, too tough for his own good, was just taking some shots. Douglas' striking was on point, man. His shots were crisp and creative, and I thought he looked fantastic. He picked up a bonus, and deservedly so. I thought he looked phenomenal, and just a guy that, certainly you probably don't know a whole lot about unless you're the hardest of hardcore, or maybe just a big fan of the Brazilian scene, but a guy that's had his share of issues and personal battles and injuries and things like that over the years. So for him to pick up a win, to look as good as he did, and then to get a bonus on top of that was big for him. Now, the prelims, Sam Alvey picking up the win over Alex Nicholson. Not quite the slugfest we had hoped for. I think neither guy was really all that happy with the performance. Did talk to Alex Nicholson afterwards late last night. He said he thinks he broke his left hand on the first punch of the fight. He was also limping really, really bad as well, so I think he probably broke his foot too. He didn't want to say. He said he was hoping he didn't break his foot, but just watching him walk around, he didn't look very good. He did say, look, I couldn't have lost to a nicer guy. He also said, I think I liked the guy too much. I kind of became a fan of Sam Alvey, and it kind of, I guess, quelled the fire a little bit inside of him and made it a little tougher for him. Meanwhile, Sam Alvey afterwards said, he wasn't really happy with his performance either. It was a weird fight. It really was. The Sam Alvey counter left was working really good, but neither man really able to put a stamp on it. I think we thought this was going to be more of a slugfest, and it was a striking fight, but it wasn't quite the slugfest we anticipated. So big win for Sam Alvey. He's not ruling out coming back again and fighting again 5 times in a year. He wants to come back, maybe fight at 207 December 30th. Like, unbelievable, man. The guy, after some time away, is making up for lost time for sure by just fighting every damn time out, man. He's doing the Cowboy Cerrone schedule, so good for him. Meanwhile, Alex Nicholson is 1-2 in the UFC. Judging by the reaction I got online with the interview that we did with Alex Nicholson earlier in the week, I think a lot of fans would like to see him cut, would like to see him gone from the UFC. We'll see. He certainly, I guess we'll see what the WME IMG era, what they think about it. I mean, he's certainly generating clicks, right? The guy is how many guys on the prelims are generating that type of buzz, whether it be positive, negative, whatever. I mean, we always say the biggest thing is just to just to make people care one way or the other, even if they hate you. And there's a lot of people that hate you. He even walked out to, you can hate me now. He gets it. He knows people hate him. Be interesting to see. 1-2, if the UFC wants to be done with him, probably be real easy to cut him and not say anything about it. We'll see if they bring him back. Marco Polo Reyes defeated Jesse Novelli, split decision. Good fight here. Be honest with you, I actually thought Novelli stole the round in the third, and I thought he stole the fight in the third. Turns out I was wrong. I had it split going into the third. All 3 judges actually agreed that he took the third round. The problem was 2 of them had him down 2-0 before they even got to the third round. So that's what happened there. Jason Novelli did steal that third and final round with the last minute offense, but it was too late. He was already down 2-0, so he lost the fight to Marco Polo Reyes. Marco Polo Reyes, not his best performance, not his most convincing performance. Again, I thought he lost the fight, but a guy that is doing big things for the Mexican scene, and maybe another one of their flag bearers as this market continues to develop. And lastly, Enrique Barzola defeated Chris Avila in the opening fight. Enrique Barzola had a chance to see him fight a couple of times. He is a former tough winner, a Peruvian. Very, very tough dude. I kind of had a feeling this was going to be a bad matchup for Avila as well, and it ended up being so. 30-26 on all 3 judges' cards. So, listen, that's what happened in Mexico. Now it's going to be on to New York. I'm actually going home. I'm going to go back to Vegas for just a little bit, do some laundry, pack up, and head to New York. Out in New York, it will be a big one. Of course, UFC 205. Everybody's looking forward to that. They want to see it. 3 title fights. the historic Madison Square Garden, all kinds of big stuff. That's going to be next week. We'll have fun with the podcast, I'm sure, because a lot of friends are going to be out there. Abby Subban is actually coming in to be our video editor, so we'll talk to him. Simon Head's going to be there, a good buddy from the Sun. Shamakar Sandhu is going to be there, so it might have a very European flavor. Mike Bond's going to be there for us as well. He's actually working for Rolling Stone, but he's going to be in town, so I'm sure we'll have some fun. Before I pack up, another special thing that you'll get to know about UFC Fight Night 98 Mexico City. It was my son's first UFC event. Now, I say that with a little bit of an asterisk. He'd been to a couple in a carrier before, but that doesn't really count. Last night was the first time that he actually got to go, and he got to watch the fights. And now I've got little Eli sitting here in my lap. What'd you think about the fights, buddy?
It was good.
Yeah, did you have a good time? What was your favorite part?
The boys.
The boys? I think your favorite part might have been the popcorn. You had the biggest popcorn bucket I've ever seen. Did you like the popcorn?
Yeah.
I heard there was one part where you were a little bit scared. Were you scared at one part? What part scared you?
The one had the blood in the nose.
Oh, the Alexa Grasso fight and Heather Jo Clark fight?
Yeah.
It scared you when there was blood in the nose?
Yeah.
Yeah. But overall, did you have fun? Are you a fight fan?
Yeah.
Yeah? You like Daddy's work?
Yeah.
You going to go again?
Yes.
All right, thanks, buddy. I appreciate you joining in. So, a big night for the Morgan family. All right, I got to pack up. Luckily, my wife has brought some coffee, some breakfast here. We've got to shower up, head to the airport. She's going back to San Luis Potosí, where my son is going to continue learning Spanish. I am going to go home, shower, and head to New York. Hopefully, you guys enjoy whatever it is you're doing this weekend, and hopefully, it wasn't too tough listening to me do this thing all by myself. In the meantime, thanks for listening.